Alrighty, this morning we're here to talk about Alice Fulton's poem Second Sight. And this, in a way, is sort of the odd man out of the four texts I've grouped together as beginnings. Um, and for a couple reasons. First, it's what did we have? We had Flu, a microfiction story. We had um, two plays, and we have this as a poem. So, in that regard, I guess it's no odder out than Flu was. Those microfiction stories are almost as condensed as poems are. Um, but in those other ones, uh, in Flu, we saw a beginning of a relationship that has come to full fruition. In Mistaken Identity, we saw the beginnings of a friendship. And in, oh my gosh, and in Sure Thing, we saw the beginning of a fantastical beginning of a relationship. And I'm using the word fantastical here in the sense of, and let me get out my look at this poor old dictionary. It's a beautiful old dictionary. It's a Funk and Wagnall's College Dictionary from God knows when, 1950 something. It was my father's, actually. I'm using the word fantastical in how it relates to of the nature of fantasy, fanciful, illusory. Okay. And that's just one of several definitions of fantastic in this dictionary. Okay. Um, and I'm using the dictionary and the idea that words have several potential meanings because this is a huge factor in second sight. Okay. Um, Dictionaries are incredibly beautiful things, not the online kind that provide you three kind of main ideas of a word, but nice dictionaries that offer you multiple definitions because writers frequently take advantage of this to convey meaning. A word with more definition is something that we refer to as an ambiguous word. And oftentimes we have to pick out a specific meaning within the context of a work. But very frequently, writers with an exceptional knowledge of language take advantage of ambiguity to deliver multiple potentialities. And Alice Fulton certainly seems to be one of those people who has a vast command of words. Um, yeah. Well, let's take a look at this poem. So I'm going to call it up here, I hope. Here we go. Here it is. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. Well, my word program's taking a second to kick in, but we'll take it out so that we're getting a nice view of the text. And of course, we have the title, Second Sight. And this might mean to look back on something, to see it again a second time. And certainly that seems to be part of what is happening here. But there is also an ambiguous meaning or a meaning where second sight refers to clairvoyance or what we might call prestidigitation or fortune telling. Okay. The ability to see the future. And that is certainly an element in this poem and almost certainly intended as a potential ambiguity. Okay. It's one of the first things that calls our attention to ambiguity is the idea that this could be a second look or it could be trying to predict the future. Okay. So we've got the title. We also might notice right away, if you're kind of into that thing, if you count the lines, you find that this has 14 lines. And a 14-line poem is oftentimes a sonnet. Now, sonnets have been traditionally used to talk about serious subject matter, things like religion, governance, and love. Okay. And there are two main types of sonnets. One is called a, excuse me, an Italian sonnet. And Italian sonnets were separated into two parts: an 8-line stanza called an octave, and a 6-line stanza, which is called a sestet. And you'll notice that the very first period in this poem occurs at the end of the 8th line. The other type of sonnet, and that first type was Italian or Petrarchan. Petrarch was an Italian poet who was, quote, perfected the Italian sonnet. And the second kind of sonnet is called an Elizabethan or a Shakespearean sonnet. And those were divided into 4 quatrains or 3 quatrains, three 4-line stanzas, and a couplet, a 2-line stanza. Well, if we take a quick look at the end of this, we see that it's written in a sentence that certainly does not um, indicate a separate couplet in the end, although it is a the what I'm trying to count lines here. The 12th line is in fact end stop, and the last 2 pairs of lines do in fact provide a logical closure to the poem's logic, and that's something that whether Italian or Elizabethan, whether Petrarchan or Shakespearean, sonnets in their first part, their first 8 lines, frequently present a problem or a conflict or present a proposition. And in the second 6 lines, or the last 6 lines, I should say, they present some sort of commentary or solution to that issue. And then the next 4 lines, I should say, and then the last 2 lines typically provide a logical conclusion to the sonnet's development. Okay, so good stuff so far, right? All right, we got a sonnet. Again, this one is about love, a serious subject, and it's very serious for this person. Now, this doesn't follow all the conventions of the traditional sonnet, which usually had a very distinct rhyme scheme, number of syllables per line. This seems to violate that. The line lengths move a little bit. They certainly don't, it certainly does not have a hard, what we would call an end rhyme pattern. And end rhymes are rhymes that appear at the ends of lines. There is some rhyme in it, though, and we'll be looking at that. But we might want to think about this idea of presenting a problem in the first part or a conflict, and then some sort of commentary on that problem in the last 6 lines. Okay. So we'll just start with a reading. Well, as if we haven't already started, right? Let's continue with a reading. Second sight. If I could fire a song so strong men cut themselves, I won't say only when shaving, would you be moved? Or say I dyed my hair an alibi of sweetened 20, would the odds improve? After we kissed, I wore my mouth like a neon bow tie for days, even pleased with Times Square's holiday displays, those electric devils pimping their winks. Your voice sparks in me yet, a red signal leaping up a radio tower, the stars chattering in light years. One kiss, the kind that commonly dazzles a jukebox to croon, but with me still in continuum, its second sight like a candle's clairvoyant tongue quickening the night. All right. And again, reading poems, especially out loud, you hear so much that you don't necessarily see on the page when you read silently. I hope you noticed some of those rhymes in there as I read, despite my attempts not to overtly draw attention to them. Okay, so let's think about what's going on here. We have an I, okay, um, and we have a you. And a question becomes, is the you present? This is an address to the you. It does not really seem like the you is present yet. Okay, is present. Is there is no response, certainly. Um, and the questions are maybe not the kind of thing you would ask directly of a potential love interest. Um, when we think about who these characters might be, if I could fire a song so strong men cut themselves, this probably implies that the you is male, right? Yeah. This would you cut yourself? Okay, when you're shaving, or not necessarily even when you're shaving. Would you cut yourself for me? All right, uh, male. Or say I dyed my hair an alibi of sweet and 20. Typically, and we always deal again in the realm of speculative speculation. Typically, women dye their hair, not men so much, at least not until recently, when we see more and more guys, stepping out of that comfort zone, that, having the same old hair creates. Yeah, my hair's been like this since I've been having a bad hair day since I was 17. And except for a brief period when I applied for my job at MTSU, it's always been about this long. It never seems to get any longer. It's just old, dry, brittle, breaks off, right? I guess there were a couple periods in my life I cut it shorter. Um, I worked in a steel mill for almost 10 years, and it was consistently getting burned off. So I kept it short for a while. I gave up on that too. Um, and again, when I applied for my job at MTSU, I got a haircut for like the first time in 15 years. And I came to my interview, and the two people that interviewed me both had ponytails. Um, well, the department of the chair of the English department at the time did not. He had short hair, but one of the people that in the English department that attended me had a ponytail, looked kind of like a garden gnome, and and the dean of liberal arts at the time had a ponytail, and I was like, God, I went and got my hair cut. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with it. Traditionally, women are the ones that dye their hair. Sorry about that little transgression there. But yeah, guys, in of my generation at least, typically would not dye their hair beyond maybe the application of something called Grecian formula to try and hide the gray when you got older. Um, Shoe black, so to speak. Um, so we have a male you and a female I, probably, in this poem. All right. And then the female is the speaker, and we start with a couple of questions. And these are not rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions are something that the speaker already knows the answer to. These seem to be honest questions, but again, we hear no response. And this is especially important with the first question, because the lack of response leads to a second question. And again, these don't seem to be the kinds of questions you would ask a fairly new, I believe, potential love interest. And let's think about how I come to that conclusion of fairly new. First off, it says, after we kissed, I wore my mouth like a neon bow tie for days. Okay. Your voice sparks in me yet, a red signal leaping up a radio tower, and it was one kiss. So let's think about the general situation. There has been a kiss shared between these two people, and the speaker seems to be questioning after a few days if this has been, if this means a potential relationship in the making. And I don't think the U is present because it seems to be, had there been more communication over the course of these days, um, these questions would have been answered. Okay, she would know, the speaker would know whether or not a relationship is in the making. And this is another thing that makes this poem very different from the other things we've looked at. There is as yet no resolution to whether or not there is a relationship developing here. We're looking at one half's perspective of hope, probably, and maybe even doubt. Certainly, I think doubt, or we might even say not despair, but distrust of this relationship coming to fruition. All right. So let's think about the first line. If I could fire a song so strong men cut themselves. Ooh, if I could fire. And of course, fire has some symbolic value here. It's a symbol of passion, right? Fire of love. And of course, it's also dangerous. You know, if I could fire a strong song so strong men cut themselves. And again, fire and cut are both rather dangerous, violent words, and we've got the word strong in there. Let's continue the sentence though. I won't say only when shaving. Would you be moved? So now she says, I won't say only when shaving. She suggests a possible situation in which a distracted man could cut himself, but she also says, I won't say only when shaving, which suggests that if I were to ask, would you cut yourself for me? Hmm, that's a strong question, you know, uh, not just accidentally, but on purpose. Would you cut yourself for for love, for me? Would you be moved, right, by the song? So she's again questioning the relationship, questioning whether the commitment level of the male, or if he has in fact been moved by the first kiss. Or say I dyed my hair an alibi of sweet and 20, would the odds improve? Okay, now we've got the word dyed, and even though this relates to the coloring technique with cut and fire, what we hear, of course, is, or say I dyed my hair an alibi, or say I died. Um, the verbal rendition of this, especially if you take a little pause at the end of that line, you know, lots of times people take people for granted until they die, and then oh, whoa, etc. Uh, so there's that possibility, but the sentence continues, and there is no end stop there. This is a pretty heavily enjammed line. It is syntactically complete, or say I died, but there's nothing to indicate the sentence ends. And we've already sort of been trained to read this poem in sentences, right? Because of the would you. That line draws you to the next line very hard. You have to move to the next line to finish the syntax of would you. And that kind of trains us to read this as sentences. Or say I dyed my hair an alibi. Dyed an alibi um, are sort of a half rhyme, what we might refer to as a slant rhyme. They're not a perfect rhyme, but dyed and alibi, they share sounds within the words that give them a sort of a rhyming sense. And again, they are not end rhymes because alibi is in the middle of a line. Um, it's a it's an well, those are called internal rhymes, but we've got one at the end of a line and one in the center. So that does, it's not quite an internal rhyme either. It's an interesting mix of the two. But what is an alibi? Okay. Um, it's a thing that proves innocence in a legal case, right? A thing that proves innocence. Or say I dyed my hair an alibi of sweet and 20. Would the odds improve? And this, of course, suggests that the speaker is not sweet and 20 and needs proof of innocence. um, you know, she's doubting herself, seems worried perhaps about her age. Maybe the you is younger. Maybe she thinks the you desires someone younger. You know, what has caused the lack of communication between them? Is it because I am somehow inadequate? Seems to be the gist of these questions. You know, what can I do to make myself more appealing? Yeah, so that suggests some self-doubt. The sweet and 20 thing suggests, you know, age, suggests perhaps body image issues, you know, don't know. But then we find out that about the kiss. After we kissed, I wore my mouth like a neon bow tie for days. And we'll stop there at the end of the first clause. So we know there was kissing, and I wore my mouth like a neon bow tie for days. Here we have a simile, like a neon bow tie. So you try and envision that. And of course, the neon is glowing, and the bow tie, of course, is a big smile. Frown is not a bow tie. It's a big smile is much closer to the bow tie shape. And she wore it. All right. Yeah, this was something on the outside. People could see this. This wasn't an internal smile. This was a physical manifestation of happiness. And it was, she wore it for days. And that, of course, suggests I wore it for days, that initial happiness, that initial very pleasing sensation has perhaps started to wear off and has given way to these doubts because there hasn't been any more communication, perhaps. And we'll get to why I think that too. Um, and then it goes on. Even pleased with Times Square holiday displays. And this gives us a setting. New York around the holidays. And of course, the holidays are supposed to be times of happiness, but we know that for many people, that is not the case, that many people feel particularly isolated during the holidays. And, you know, New York, this big city of bustle and movement, you know, undoubtedly includes a lot of single people who do not feel the happiness that Christmas provides many of us. Um, so there's this, again, this potential sort of mix here of happiness, and it's even pleased with Times Square's holiday displays. You know, typically she is not happy during this season. This is a hope that the kiss has given her. She's not typically pleased with the holidays. She is one of these people who feels a sense of isolation and perhaps even depression around the holidays. But the hope for this relationship that the kiss gave her has carried her through. And then we get a colon, and colons announce, right? And therefore it's a kind of a definition of the holiday displays, those electric devils pimping their winks. And wow, what a strong metaphor we've got there. Again, I really admire this poem and the way it works. Those electric devils pimping their winks. And of course, this refers to the displays, advertisements, displays in shop windows trying to sell us stuff. Kind of like neon, we get electric. These displays glow out into the night from the lit windows of the department stores in downtown New York, but they're devils, and they are pimping, again, trying to sell their winks. Okay, and then a wink, of course, is a sort of a flirtatious device sometimes. But this suggests a degree of distrust, right? And a questioning of, were you just trying to sell me a line, right? Were you just trying to get that kiss, maybe something more that didn't happen? Pimping here suggests sexual content. And the devil, of course, is that evil father of all lies, right? And there we come to the end of the problem or the conflict, and we see developed here a speaker who is uncertain of what is going on with a relationship. He is both hopeful and distrustful. Perhaps she has had relationships fall apart in their early stages before. We don't know, but something is caused. And again, I think it's a lack of communication, but that comes up in the second part where we see some more rumination on the topic. Has caused some distress on the part of the speaker. Okay, so now we get to this further sort of commentary on the situation. Your voice sparks in me yet. Okay, and nice, again, lovely use of language. Your voice sparks in me yet. Okay, sparks, of course, this is another sort of electric, energizing word. And in one of its old fashioned meanings, to spark was to court, right? To date. So, again, this lovely use of ambiguity in language here. Um, but after neon and electric, we get mostly that energizing feeling of the voice of the kiss. And then another colon, okay, another announcement. And in this case, a definition, a metaphorical definition of the voice, a red signal leaping up a radio tower. Okay, red, of course, like fire, a symbol for love, and it's leaping energetically up a radio tower. And of course, a radio tower is part of a means of communication, right? It's leaping up here, and of course, voices are implements of communication. But notice it sparks in me yet. Okay, that too is ambiguous. Does that mean that it's the memory of the voice that is still offering hope, or is it that there might be, every time she hears the voice, though she hasn't seen the person physically, um, there is a hope generated. But again, she's equated this person with the devil, the father of all lies, and there's still doubt. Okay, and then a second metaphor for the voice, the stars chattering in light years. And here's one of the reasons I think maybe this is it's been a while, right? The stars, of course, are part of night and romantic symbols of themselves. And then we got the idea of chattering, not meaningful conversation, mind you, but chatter, gossip, almost even perhaps. Well, not exactly. It's chatter though. It's not meaningful conversation. It's the kind of back and forth that maybe happens between two people when they first meet. Again, this is only one kiss. Maybe they were strangers met in a bar, right? This is New York. Yeah, they were out individually, met in a bar, got to drinking together, ended up sharing, talking politely, maybe some flirting, but nothing of deep significance. Chatter, right? Stars chattering in light years, and light years suggests distance. And this is one of the reasons, one of the main reasons I think that there has been a lack of communication. The initial contact is far, far away. Okay. One kiss. And here's where we learn that it's one kiss, but I've already covered that. And again, you should be on your umpteenth reading of the poem by now. One kiss, the kind that commonly dazzles a jukebox to croon. And that wasn't a real choke that time. Well, there's some problems here. First we have a personification at the end of that clause. A jukebox to croon. A jukebox, of course, is a thing, and to croon is to sing, and to croon is typically associated with a male singing romantically to a female, right? Jukeboxes don't croon. So the jukebox has been personified, and it creates this sort of a cartoon like image in my head of old cartoons where inanimate objects frequently did do human things, right? But the word commonly, okay, we got the word dazzles in there too, which is sort of a continuation of electric sparks, dazzles, right? um Dazzles just fits in nicely, but commonly, there is nothing common about this, right? So what is it commonly? How is it common? Crooning jukeboxes are not common, okay, but perhaps it was the kind of kiss that does commonly elicit a strong emotional response. Okay, so that's how I fit commonly in there. But the simple fact that I have to think about it is intriguing. And the way that word fits in there, commonly dazzles a jukebox to croon. You're like, no. So it's kind of a paradox, and you have to think about how that word might fit into the context of the poem. And then we get another clause, but with me still in continuum. Okay. And that's an interesting word, continuum. And I'm going to reach over once more and grab my happy Funkin' Wagnalls. And I am going to find the definition here. And it is the noun form of the adjective continuous. A total that is continuous and uninterrupted, that which has perfect continuity, a basic common character underlying a series of indefinite variations. And it's that second definition of continuum that we seem to be seeing here. She is imagining infinite possibilities for this relationship. Okay. Is it working? Is it not working? Is it something I did? Is it that he just wants something else? Um, why aren't we communicating? Is it yeah, question after question after question as the poem begins, and these questions keep her in this constant state of hope and insecurity. Okay. And that's a sort of an aside, what we might call a um, it's not part of the main part of the sentence. In fact, if we take out the things between the commons, we have one kiss, the kind that commonly dazzles a jukebox to croon, one kiss, but with me still in continuum, and one kiss, it's, and of course, it's refers to the kiss. It's second sight like a candle's. Okay. And here we find the source of the poem's title. It's second sight like a candle's. Okay, now candles we know are objects that might be found like in a fortune teller's abode, right? They're also kind of considered romantic, dinner by candlelight, right? Um, but candles don't look back, and they don't necessarily have um, clairvoyant powers, or do they? Candles are, in fact, used in divination. Okay, um, some there are a million types of divination. You know, from throwing the chicken bones to reading tarot cards to tea leaves to the way a candle flame flickers. All right, so it is in fact a tool used in fortune telling. So we've got its second sight like a candle's. And again, we have this person that's unsure of what's going on and is trying to figure out what this relationship might hold. So we're talking about seeing the future here. And if there has been, and here we hit yet another colon, it's second sight like a candle's, a sort of a definition, an announcement of what that means. Clairvoyant tongue quickening the night, and there's the word clairvoyant. If you've been having any second thoughts about the ambiguity of second sight and its relationship to fortune telling, it's over now. Clairvoyant is a person, a clairvoyant is a person that sees the future. Clairvoyance, the ability to see the future. Clairvoyant tongue, and as an adjective it refers to the tongue. Again, the flickering of a candle's flame, its tongue, is used by some fortune tellers. Quickening the night. It's, here's this candle flame flickering and quickening the night. And that's an amazing word, quickening. In my dictionary, the word quickening has an amazing number of definitions. And I actually looked it up in more than one dictionary. And in another dictionary I own called the Longenscheid's New College Merriam-Webster English Dictionary, um, I found these for the word quicken: to make alive, to kindle, to cause to burn more intensely, to hasten, accelerate, to enter into a phase of active development and growth, to shine more brightly, to become more rapid. And all of those definitions can fit into the context of this poem. To make alive, I wore my mouth like a neon bow tie for days. To kindle, to light a fire from the first line there. And again, sparks, right? To cause to burn more intensely. She wants this relationship to move beyond its initial spark, to truly become that passionate fire. This is a hope to hasten, accelerate. She's hoping to hear soon for some sort of communication, or at least to find a resolution to her conflict between hope and doubt, to enter into a phase of active growth or development. Will this relationship grow? Right? She's hoping so. To shine more brightly. Yeah, that too. Okay. And to become more rapid. Again, bring on the night and its romance. let's get this thing moving here. And again, there doesn't seem, there is no response in the poem. We have a problem presented in the traditional form of the sonnet, and then a commentary on it. And this is it ends with the ideas of intensity and hurry and um, trying to see the future. And this is something that the this is internal, right? So we have, and again, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but when you have a speaker talking to a thing or a person that can't answer, it is called an apostrophe. So this poem is an apostrophe to the you, because there's been a lack of communication, I believe. All right. Um, so where might we go with this, with theme? And yeah, I'll think about putting my notes up here. Um, how about this for a potential thematic statement? Can a single kiss foretell the future of a romantic relationship? The passion of a kiss can certainly arouse hope, among other things, but as a portent, and a portent is a it's another word for clairvoyance, or an omen. A portent, I guess, would be most closely related to the word omen. Can it, but as an omen, can it leave room for doubt? It can leave room for doubt. So that's the thematic statement I came up with for this. Again, a beautiful, intricate piece of work on Alice Fulton's part in 14 lines. And I'll be talking to you again soon.